this is Jerry from ONYX Pages, and today in this video I'm going to be doing the LGBTQIA plus tag, booktube tag. Yes. So this tag was originally created by Donica, and I'm going to post Donica's a link to Donica's original video in the description box. And I find out about this tag because I follow Perpetual Pages, so I'm going to post a link to their booktube channel as well in the description box. So you should actually probably watch Perpetual Pages LGBTQIA plus tag first, because they go through a background of how this tag was created. As you know, I'm fairly new to booktube, so I'm not aware of the conversations that have happened, and I haven't particularly looked into them. So if you want to find out more about the reasons why the tag was created and to get a little bit more context, you should probably do that, and then you can come back here to find out more about the tag as it relates to me. All right, so there are 6 different questions in the tag, and I may or may not answer all of them, but I'm going to go through them right now, and I hope that this is an opportunity for you to get to know a little bit more about me and why I have this channel, but also for those of you who identify as LGBTQIA plus, that you'll feel that there's one more person in the community who you can connect with and read books with. All right, question number 1, how do you identify? I identify as queer only when I need to, and in the work that I do, that is a topic that sometimes comes up, but I try not to talk a lot about my sexual orientation. I used to in my 20s, because at that time I was coming into my identity, and it was really important for me to have those kinds of conversations, but then I just kind of stopped, because I just felt like those conversations led to invasive questions, and my boundaries changed, and I don't really have that much to say to anybody about my sexual orientation these days, except to perhaps say that I've got a wife and I'm really excited about that, and she's right there smiling, and so I'll say things like that, but I really don't have time to talk about, you know, my identity in casual circles. But for the purpose of this tag, I think it is important to say that I'm out as queer. I'm proud of my sexual identity. It's a way that I connect to other people. It's a way that I read. It's a way that I engage in the world. It informs my politics, and so that is how I identify. And I use the pronouns she at all times. I also identify as cisgender. Okay, question number 2. What are some of your favorite LGBTQIA plus, I'm going to now just say queer books and authors? So for queer authors, now I typically read Afrofuturism, science fiction, magical realism, and fantasy written by Black folks. And so because that's the genre that I read the most of, I actually have not had that much experience with queer content and queer writers. So my favorite writer is Nalo Hopkinson. Nalo Hopkinson is an exceptional human being and an exceptional writer. If you have not read any Hopkinson, you need to read Hopkinson, and maybe I will film a video that's a spotlight on Hopkinson, where I can show you all the books that she's written and tell you all about them, and then you can choose which Hopkinson you can start with. But she is amazing. She does identify as queer, and her writing reflects that. So she's actually my favorite author, and she happens to also be queer. She's also my favorite author because she's queer and Black and from the Caribbean, and amazing, and a Torontonian, and she's just, I can talk about her for very, very long periods of time. I'm also getting to know Samuel Delaney's work. Samuel Delaney is a gay Black science fiction writer. He is the most noted gay Black male science fiction writers, and so I'm starting to read a lot of his work. I'm familiar with his work, but I'm starting to get into the actual material. So I think that the two of them would be my favorite science fiction, Afrofuturism, magical realism writers who are Black and queer. And Mia Mackenzie, who wrote The Summer We Got Free, is also queer, and the story that she tells has amazing queer content. So In terms of titles, anything by Nalo Hopkinson has some measure of queer content. The most recent book that I read of hers that had some really Sister Mine, which is an amazing cover actually. This is going to be awkward. Okay, let's do it this way. So Sister Mine has some amazing imagery, and I'll get into the words if I look at the book, but there's so much music, and the way that queerness gets dealt with in this is really great. And I really like that Nalo Hopkinson talks about relationships that are monogamous, but also talks about relationships that are polyamorous and other styles of relationship and desire, which I think is really great. Okay, so there's that. Okay. Those are some of my favorite LGBTQ books and authors. How often do I talk about queer books on your channel, on my channel, and what videos would I recommend to people if they are looking for content? So I've only had my channel for maybe about a month, maybe 6 weeks. I don't exclusively read queer books, and it's because they're harder to find in the Afrofuturism and Black sci-fi world. But I have developed a 7 calorie shell rating system, and one of the questions that I ask of any of the books that I read is, to what extent does it deal with queer identities, queer families, queer communities, queer perspectives? And so that is something that I hold very near and dear to me. So regardless of the book that I am reading, because I don't think that you need to be a queer author in order to trouble heterosexism, I ask those questions. So regardless of what I'm reading, I am going to be talking about queerness and queer content. So just watch all the videos. Question 4, who are your favorite LGBTQIA plus booktubers? Perpetual Pages and Adriana is pretty much fantastic. I don't really know any other out queer booktubers. I don't really follow religiously many of the queer booktubers. I actually found out about more booktubers as a result of this tag. So I am getting to know these other individuals, so I can't really say that they're my favorite. So unfortunately, I only have one favorite, and that favorite is Perpetual Pages. If you look at their LGBTQIA plus tag, you'll see that they have identified, I think, 8 or 9 booktubers who are queer that they really like. And so I'm actually going through that list, to be honest, and watching their videos and increasing my connections with other queer booktubers. So I would suggest that you look at their channel to find out more. But what I will say about Perpetual Pages, and I have said this in another video, is that I really appreciate how eloquently Adriana talks about issues of queerness, and that it was through watching their videos and sharing their videos with our book club, the SOULar Powered Afrofuturism Slow Reading Group on Facebook, that I really got to appreciate the contributions that BookTube can make to those of us who want to read more queer content and find that content really liberating. So thank you for Perpetual Pages for doing that, and thank you for also connecting me to other booktubers who I can connect with, and creating space to inspire people like me to create channels like this. Question 5. When was the first time you encountered an LGBTQIA character in fiction? I don't remember. I cannot answer that question. Is there anything else? Question 6. Is there anything else you want to add, and who do you tag? I'm not tagging nobody because I don't know a lot of people around here, around these parts. So you can, if you want to make a video because you're queer and you're a booktuber, I'd really love to watch it. So consider yourself tagged. But anything else that I want to add? I've mentioned this in another video, and if you haven't had an opportunity to explore Maya Reads, I'm gonna put a link to her BookTube channel in the description box. Maya Reads is a really great example. I don't know how she identifies, and that's not really relevant to my point, but every time she talks about books, or quite often when she talks about books that have protagonists who are queer or trans or intersex, she mentions that, and it's an important part of the review, and it adds value to how she discusses these stories. And I think that regardless of how she identifies, I think that that's an amazing and important and critical example for all booktubers, because you don't need to be from the community to notice that all the characters are heterosexual in all the books that you read. Like, you can be straight and do that. You can be cisgender and do that. You don't have to be from the community to turn your mind to those questions. So while this tag is specifically about queer booktubers, I guess I would pose a challenge and state an observation that it's not up to queer booktubers to address these issues. It's really everybody's responsibility to do so.